afternoon. Welcome to Garage 93. Thank you for tuning in for the Bike Builds bonus series. It's been a really fun project while we've all been spending a lot of time here at home over the past couple weeks. And for episode 4, I wanted to bring you guys inside because we've been receiving a ton of questions to the Red Bull Motorsports channel, and I figured I'd give you guys a little shop tour and answer some of those along the way. So let's get this started, because the first question that I received was, what tools do you recommend for a first motorcycle garage? Now, for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you started from zero. You bought a motorcycle, you have no tools at all, and on the very basics, I think at least this is needed. Screwdriver set, Phillips flat blade, tire irons, diagonal cutter, needle nose. This right here is a pliers wrench. They make this in different form and fashion, but honestly, if you're new to the program, buying all the large socketry is going to be something you might wait a little while to do, so this will get the job done. Sockets, ratchet, tire pressure gauge, spoke wrench, often overlooked but super important. Allen wrenches and T-handles. T-handles on dirt bikes too. I find myself using them a lot. They're quick, easy, indestructible. Along with that question, there was, what are some of your favorites? Some of my favorites, this hammer about does it all. Soft face on one side, hard face on the other. This Motion Pro tire pressure gauge, super Gucci. I absolutely love this. Bead breaker, genius tool. This is how I break all the beads on my tires when I'm traveling. Quarter inch ratchets. Motorcycles are little. You don't need a whole ton to get that taken care of. Of course, Scotch-Brite. I use this all the time in the home, on the motorcycles. Absolutely love it. And then there was a question about game changers. And as funny as it sounds, sometimes those things are little. One thing for sure, this little grease gun makes applying grease absolute breeze, and I only adapted that this year and have been falling in love with that. And then of course, the lift. The lift for me is something that took a while to get, but there's only so much time you can spend working underneath a motorcycle, and getting it off the ground is such a relief. So being able to sit in a shop chair and actually have some of your components at eye level, it doesn't matter if you made it out of wood, put it on an old table, just getting the bike off the ground makes it so much more enjoyable to work on. So, and then, as funny as this may sound, sometimes it's little things that go the distance, but when I'm doing some of these builds, every once in a while, I'll just destroy my hands. And a couple of years ago, I found this Kiehl's hand salve, and to be honest, I struggle wearing gloves all the time, but if I put this on a couple times a day, it at least keeps my fingers from getting beat up and bleeding throughout these projects. So game changer or not, in my book, it's been something that's been huge to the program. So another question that was asked is, where do you source your tools? And originally, when I first started working on stuff and setting up the shop here, the majority of the stuff I was getting was bargain hunting on eBay and Craigslist, and I still do that from time to time. But after I got the basic setup established, I really got an interest traveling internationally when I would see tool brands that I had never seen before of high quality stuff. If it was when I was in Germany or Japan or the UK, all across the world, I've seen interesting tools that aren't something we have at home. So I really like acquiring tools when I'm traveling abroad, and that's been one thing that I've had a lot of fun doing the past couple years. But when it comes to just normal needs of hand tools and supplies and things for the shop, there's this website called Zoro.com I use, no affiliation, but when it comes down to it, you get 20% off a purchase over $100, and everything's in the Southern California area in one day. So for me, it's exactly what I need to keep up with the odds, ends, and tools needed at the shop. So the next question I found pretty funny. It was, how many times have you lost a 10 mil? Too many to count, unfortunately. Historically, stunt riders have a habit of walking off with tools that aren't theirs. A 10 millimeter obviously being one of those. So still to this day, if we're out and about and you ask me for a 10 mil, I'm gonna give you an 11. If that doesn't cut it for your job, you're gonna need to keep asking. But funny enough, I tagged a few of my buddies on a SK Tools post last year because they made every single size and option 10 millimeter you can get on one rail, and they sent it to me for Father's Day. So this right here has not only been an epic talking piece, but it's about every 10 you could ever need, so I'm replenished at least for a couple years. So the next question that I received was, what grease do you use for the rear axle? Honestly, grease is grease as long as you're not just using spray lube. it's gonna be better than not using any at all. I use Motul Tech Grease 300 in about 90% of my applications in one of these little Delaco grease guns. It keeps the program clean, and you can apply it lightly if you like on threads or whatever the case, or across the top of the axle when you're doing assembly. And then for lighter duty stuff where I'm looking for a dielectric, I just use Super Lube. It's a lightweight deal, but I really only need those couple greases for my program. So the next questions are fleet related, and the first one is, how many Triumph engines have you blown up? This is the Triumph, these are my freestyle bikes, and the answer is 0. Proper preparation prevents poor performance, and if you swap out preparation for maintenance, you have the formula for excellent engine longevity. I'm a firm believer in cheap oil changed often is far more important than expensive oil that's been neglected. So running on tip-top shape of the maintenance program, this thing's been singing on the rev limiter with absolutely 0 issues since I first built it. So the next question is a bit of a tough one. It is 2-stroke or 4-stroke? I mean, that's a loaded question. The majority of my freestyle bikes, the bikes that I commute on, are all 4-stroke. But something about riding dirt always magnetizes me to mix and fuel. And I don't know if it's because when I was learning how to ride on a KX85, or if it's the fact that your dollar goes a long way when purchasing a 2-stroke, but you know, they went over my heart. They give me the biggest smile when I'm riding them. So the dirt application, 2-stroke all day. All right, next. Which type of tire is good for road trips? I recently fell in love with the Bridgestone T31. I was lucky enough to go over to Morocco and do an adventure touring trip to launch this tire. And it absolutely blew me away on its performance that it had. Longevity, no problem, but for sure the performance aspect that it had throughout the twisties. It was one of the first modifications I made when I got the FTR 1200. And these tires on them now have 2 track days at Button Willow and 1,900 miles, and they're looking awesome. It's for sure the best upgrade that I've done to this thing. As far as road trips go, though, the Bridgestone Rib 265s on this thing get over 100,000 miles a set, and this thing's 250,000 miles deep, so I'm pretty proud of those numbers. Next up, what bike is the best bang for your buck? I mean, this one really depends on what category, what skill level rider you are, what your circle is as far as travel. When it comes to the street category, if you don't have a big travel radius and you live in a city that you can commute from and cruise around and run errands, it's tough to beat a Grom. I have one, my wife has one. It's about as much fun as you can have legally while still riding a motorcycle, and it's tough not to ride it every day. When it comes to the dirt category, bang for your buck, 125 2-stroke all day. You can get good deals on 250s as well, but especially the 125s, you can find some diamonds in the rough, and if you have some time and ambition, you can turn them into a fine steed like the CR or like the YZ. And I think it has a strong testament about how affordable these 2-strokes are and the potential that they have. But I don't know how much longer I can stand here looking at these things without riding, so I think I'm gonna have to say goodbye to you guys and rip a little evening Grom session.